What do you do if you can't quite get your parrot to take a bath? I received a question today that I'm going to read to you, and we will talk about parrots and bats. Hey guys, I'm Kaylin, the author of The Parrot Bliss Bond and the new book, Get to Know African Gray and Cape Parrots, both available on Amazon. Make sure to get your copy today. If you know that I have over 20 species of parrots and that this is River, one of my green cheeks, then you're used to hanging out. Thank you for being here. If not, hopefully you want to create a blissful bond with your parrot, and then you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hey River. Okay, so here's the question that we received. I was hoping maybe you could do a video about baths or showers. I've had my girl for only a short time, but I'm struggling in the bathing department. She hates it. I don't want to keep attempting it because I'm afraid I'll give her a complex with it. So first let's talk a little about baths, and then we'll talk about what you can try or what, kind of what. All right, so different species like to bathe more or less than other species. I have noticed that since I have over 20 species of parrots. I've noticed that some of my parrots, like my green cheeks, you can't turn the water on without them like flying over and they're like, I want a bath. My kaique parrots, my white-bellied kaiques, I can hardly change the water for the babies, sometimes the adults too, before they're in it, and I almost have to change it again because like they often empty their dish. So those are examples of parrots that really love their water. My African gray parrots, when I mist them, they look at me like I am so insulting, I am so rude, they're so mad at me, like, what do you think you're doing? So some of it depends on the species of parrot that you have. Now, I've also noticed that, I don't know if there's any official word from experts on how long you should bathe your parrot or how often you should bathe your parrots. Some say like once a week, some say a couple times a week, and I think that some of it depends on whether you're misting your parrots or whether you're bathing your parrots. Sometimes I have seen on social media videos where someone's just misting, it's just this light little sprinkle. And then other times I've seen videos where people bring their parrot into the shower and their parrot just is drenched. They're like under the water and they're drenched. I've never had my parrots go in the shower and like be rained on by the shower and get drenched. I have had situations though where, for example, I was walking my parrot, my Pioneer parrot, Ale. We were walking outside and it was raining and he just opened his wings and just like really moved so that the water would fall on him. He obviously loved it. So part of it is really, the amount of water that we're talking about. That makes a big difference. For me, I have observed that my parrots are not like prolific shower takers. I don't feel like they take a shower once or twice a week kind of thing. Like I said, the conures and the kikes are a little different. I will say though that when it comes to a light mist, like if you have a clean spray bottle and always put clean water in, and then I would empty the bottle and let it sit empty, otherwise it gets green if you let it sit for too long. So when you're misting your parrots, it should be the water that they're drinking. And so, for example, in my house, that means it's water that's been boiled and then allowed to cool down to room temperature. So it's clean water. If I mist my parrots, some of them like it. Some of them will open their wings, and my Amazons, they seem to like baths more, showers more. So they'll open their wings and they'll enjoy it more. However, I have other parrots that kind of look at me like, and they step out of the stream of the mist that's coming. So what I like to do for my parrots the most is sometimes I'll bring them into the shower so that they are getting the moisture, and that counts for something. Sure, it's not as much water on their feathers as misting, and it's certainly not as much as if they're in the water taking a real bath, but at least it's something. Then other times I went through a period where I used the water bottle dispensers so that the parrots could always have fresh water, but I decided that I didn't like that as well. I decided that it was really important for them to be able to take a bath if they wanted, and so I just have to be conscientious. We clean their water at least once a day, but my parrots have bowls that they can go in and they can splash around in, and they can take a bath in if they want. And I have some parrots that are free flying most of the day, like my Cape parrots, and they have a pretty significant sized bowl that they can go in if they want. So some of that is also a matter of, for example, my Capes, they'll dip their head. A lot of the parrots will dip their head, but they don't necessarily like get their whole body wet. Or if they're splashing around in the water, maybe they're getting their feathers all wet, but it's not drenched and it's not super wet, so they don't look super wet, like their feet are in their water, but that's about it. When we're teaching a parrot how to take a bath, if they're not used to it, some of the things you want to do: number one, make sure that you have a bowl of water in their cage for them. They don't prefer necessarily to go to the bottom of the cage, so if you can have it in a dish, like a water dish for them, that might work better. Number two, when you are giving your parrot, like you're trying to teach them to take a bath or to take a misting, one of the things that I've heard and that I've tried and that I feel like worked is you want to start by just misting at their feet. In other words, before you give them a full-on shower where they're like, oh my God, there's all this water, you just start with their feet. And if they seem okay, maybe next time, maybe the second or third time, just do their feet, but slowly move your way up so that initially their feet are getting wet and it's just a light misting. And then maybe it's going up a little, maybe their tail, their wings, like it goes up and up until you're misting all of them. But it's a slow progression so that they kind of get used to the idea of being misted. They get used to the idea of just having a little water on them. And it's not threatening at that point because it's something that has changed over time, and it's something that never was in their face and just taking over them. The other thing, like I said, that I do is I have water bowls available so that they can put their feet in, and then that way they do it at their own level of safety and security kind of thing. They approach it the way they want. I have noticed that in the wild, when I see any old parrots any birds flying around, they won't, for example, go, I don't know if you can hear or see, right there's a fountain, and there's never birds in that fountain. I've never seen a bird in there. On the other hand, when it rains and there's a shallow puddle, birds will often go there and flutter around. Ducks are different, but birds go and I sit there going, that water is dirty, the shallow little water on the street. The pond or something like that might, is clean, but they don't go in the deep waters. It's a safety thing. So they really prefer the shallow waters, and I think they prefer not to be too overwhelmed with water, because if they're too wet and they're too drenched, they wouldn't be able to fly. So if we keep that in mind, it might help you recognize that if your bird's just getting their feet wet, in some ways, that's kind of success, because once they're comfortable getting their feet wet, they might flutter around in the water, and when they do, they kind of are skillful at getting the water to go like up and gently rain on them. So they kind of make the water start to circulate and give themselves their own shower or bath. So keep that in mind, because that's maybe going to help you kind of relieve some pressure. It's true, you don't want them to kind of get traumatized and to not want to be around water at all, kind of thing, other than drinking. But I feel like you also don't have to expect them to get fully drenched. I don't think that they necessarily do that in the wild. Also in the wild, you know, depending on where your parrot's from, like Amazons, they have more access to water. I think it rains like almost every day in the Amazon forest, or it traditionally did. And so they're more used to having water, you know, within them, around them, on them. But there are some parrots that don't come from quite such a tropical environment, and it doesn't necessarily rain every day, which means that they aren't really taking a bath every day, maybe even once a week. Like, they really take a shower when it rains. When it rains, they don't have a choice. Or when there's a puddle and they choose to go into the puddle. When my Indian ringneck is out back and it's rained, the water pools in the umbrella because the top of the umbrella isn't connected. And so it's like a flap. And it makes a little, like a little pool. It's shallow, it's little, and she'll go in there and she'll get herself pretty wet. It's on her terms. She knows the area, she visits our back area, she knows the umbrella, so she's comfortable. So let your parrot really take some time to get comfortable. Recognize that just starting with the feet, and then if they just splash some water on themselves, I think they're doing pretty well. From there, misting them is going to be like a step in the right direction. It's going to be a lot easier to do. So hopefully, if you follow those things, and if you give them that space and start with their feet, hopefully your parrot will become a good, at least mister or water stepper inner when they get their feet wet kind of thing. Thank you for joining me in this blissful video. If you liked it, please be sure to give me a thumbs up. That helps my juice, or a comment. That helps the juice for the channel. If you really liked it and helped you out, a super thanks would be awesome. If you scroll to the right of the thumbs up, there's the super thanks, and you can send River and I, who keeps leaving my video, a coffee or a seed. Thanks, and I'll catch you next time.